William H. Wright was described as a quiet and tidy man, but his rags to riches story is a Kirkland Lake legend, and he is often referred to as the father of the Kirkland Lake gold camp. He's a legendary figure in Kirkland Lake's history, but what exactly is his story? William Henry Wright was born in Lincolnshire, England on April 21, 1876. At a young age, he pursued a career as a butcher and enlisted as a cavalryman with the British Army in 1887. This would lead him to serving in the Boer War in South Africa. Following the end of the war, in 1907, Wright made his way to Canada, where he had a veteran's lot in Porcupine. Veterans' lots are lots awarded to veterans in appreciation of their service during the war. It turns out that Bill's lot in particular was quite profitable, as he was allegedly able to sell his property to Buffalo Anchoret Mine for $30,000. After finally viewing his property, which he described as little more than a pile of rocks, he ventured to the then booming city of Cobalt in 1908 to visit his sister Frances and her husband Ed Hargraves, whose name would be linked to Bill's for decades to come. While there, he and Hargraves took up work as painters and decorators. By 1911, stories about gold discovery in the Swastika area reached the two gentlemen, who decided they would try their luck at prospecting. After saving some $40, which was barely enough to cover 3 claims at the time, the two set out towards the Kirkland Lake area. And it was a good thing they did, because in the late July of 1911, Bill Wright and Ed Hargraves would discover gold at their claim number 1830 and the first discovery of gold in the Kirkland Lake area. That vein was to become the main break of the camp. They would go on to stake 4 more claims, despite the rule of only 3 claims could be staked on one's license annually. As a workaround, prospectors could get other license holders to stake and transfer, which is exactly what Wright and Hargraves did. The infamous story of the discovery of gold and William and Ed's journey into the history books began with a lone crack of gunfire in an otherwise quiet bush. It was nearly time to turn in for the night when Bill Wright heard a single rifle shot. He knew it to be the signal he and Ed agreed upon before embarking into the wilderness to hunt down a meal. It meant that Ed was lost and couldn't find his way back to camp, and so Wright, a 35-year-old novice prospector at the time, set off into the woods in the direction of the blast. Neither Wright nor Hargraves knew much about prospecting, but the mission which brought them into the wilds of northern Ontario was certainly to discover some gold. That was why a promising outcrop caught Wright's eye on his way to find his brother, and a closer, curious look revealed what appeared to be visible gold. It was nearly dusk, so upon collecting his brother-in-law, Wright Hargraves made his way back to camp with plans to return the following day. The site of Wright's discovery can still be seen today on the eastern side of Tweedsmuir Road, just the right of Civic Park. Following their remarkable discovery, the duo struggled to get a mine started. While working on his claims, Bill would glance around at the other properties nearby, mind scheming for the chance of discovering more gold. One particular property belonging to a fellow prospector by the name of Burroughs caught Bill's eye, and he ventured to the claim recording office in Matheson to see what could be done. Sure enough, Burroughs' claims were falling open at midnight. With no passenger train available to facilitate his trip back to Swastika, he instead rode a frigid freight train, luckily headed that direction. It should be noted that all of this occurred on January of 1912 with temperatures 42 below zero. He is quoted as recalling the ordeal in the year 1936. It was 6 in the morning before I got back to camp, and we immediately set out to restake our Burroughs claim, Wright explained. Imagine our surprise when we found Harry and the other Tough brothers already staked them. We went south and east to stake a group of 6 claims in LaBelle that belonged to the same men and open at the same time. When we got there, Oaks had staked them too. We finally did get 3 claims along the Tough Oaks, as the men I had with me absolutely refused to return to camp without staking something. It was a tough trip along, and some of my toes were frozen, although nothing serious. With the First World War on the horizon, Ed Hargraves sold his shares in the Wright-Hargraves operation and returned home, and Bill Wright, nearly 40 years old at the time, re-enlisted and returned overseas to serve in France during World War I. Back in Kirkland Lake, Wright-Hargraves mine was incorporated in 1916, and Bill retained 600,000 shares in the company, while also holding a significant portion of the shares at Lakeshore and Sylvanite Mine as well. His shares from Lakeshore were eroded based on claims he had staked next to Harry Oaks, which he sold to Lakeshore for 200,000 shares. All of these shares were rumored to have made him the wealthiest private in the Army at the time. After his return from France, Bill Wright became vice president and director of both Lakeshore and Wright Hargreaves Mine, but chose to fulfill his duties from his home near Barrie. Despite early rivalries, Bill Wright and Harry Oaks would work together closely for years to come. Wright's influence was not only limited to the mining world. He also established a successful breeding farm and considerably large racing stable. One of his horses even won the King's Plate, a high-level horse race. In 1936, he financed the merge of the Toronto Globe and the Mail and the Empire into a national newspaper, the Globe and Mail. From its founding until the late 1970s, the paper was published in the William H. Wright Building, a unique Art Deco building located in Toronto's financial district. After the building was demolished, pieces of its former artwork were donated to the Northern College campus here in Kirkland Lake, where they can still be seen today. Despite his riches, success never changed the man. It was said that he kept a pack sack and a prospector's kit in his closet of his bedroom, always ready to hit the bush again. Also, having never married, he donated several generous investments to the town which helped him establish his wealth, including donations to the hospital of an estimated value of $100,000, a loan to the Royal Canadian Legions to finance their building, and several donations to the townspeople themselves. He equally gave $200,000 to the Barrie Hospital and continued his silent partnership with the Globe and Mail, which he described as a great voice for the good of Canada. Bill Wright passed away in September 1951 at the age of 75. The tall, slim man with the well-clipped mustache had retained his unassuming manner till the end. He was president of the Wright Hargreaves and vice president and director of the Lakeshore Mines up to his death. Little remains of the mining giants of Kirkland Lake's golden days, but the Royal Canadian Legion still prospers on the old Wright Hargreaves mine property. The Wright Hargreaves Gauge, which once stood proudly at the entrance of the mine, now reside at the Wright Hargreaves Park as well, which also house the cenotaph. Bill Wright will always be remembered as the principal founder of the Kirkland Lake Gold Camp and the local legend here in Kirkland Lake.